Um, the employer who decided to fire me, I couldn't talk about it for like a year. It was so depressing, but now I'm proud to say. But that employer actually called me back to do work for them within a few months.
Hi everyone, it's Lolita and welcome to another episode of How I Made My First $1,000. During this interview series, I get to talk to entrepreneurs and learn about how they started their businesses and turned them into success. We talk about everything from the challenges they had to the successes they had, and of course, how they made their first $1,000. In today's episode, I get to talk with Robin Thorne, who is the CEO and founder of CTI Environmental. CTI is an environmental construction and safety consulting firm, and they have had some huge contracts. And when I tell you huge contracts, I mean contracts like Southern California Edison, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and the list goes on and on. So when Robin talks, make sure that you listen. And by the way, if you love inspiring entrepreneur stories like this, make sure you subscribe to my channel and also go ahead and like this video. Sit back and enjoy and listen to what Robin Thorne is about to say. So, welcome, Miss Robin Thorne. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I am so good. I am so excited to get to talk to you today because I know that you have a wealth of stuff to share with us, right? So first, tell us about what you do.
Oh, that is a loaded question because I do so much. But ultimately, what we do is we help companies to make sure that their employees are safe. So we are compliance professionals. So employees have a right to work in an environment where they're safe, right?
Yep.
Where
Right.
there aren't hazards, where if you go to work, you expect to return home in the same condition that you were in when you went to work, right?
That's true. Mm-hmm.
Not getting injured. So we help people implement OSHA regulations to ensure their employees are safe. Because if you're making widgets, you need to focus on making widgets. We don't expect you to be regulatory experts. And so we help with compliance for OSHA and then EPA. If you're an organization and you have chemicals, hazardous materials, you can't pollute the environment, right?
Right.
If there's exhaust coming from your process, you may not be an expert on what permits do I need, what size containers, what's the materials. So we help you with all that. So we are regulatory experts. We know all the regulations, and if we don't know them, we know where to find them.
Okay, so how long have you been in business?
I have been in business. I was talking with someone yesterday and they said over a decade, 11 years.
So I like to break it down for these interviews. So let's go back 11 years ago. How did this idea pop into your head? How did this business even come about?
Wow. So that's an interesting story because I've always been entrepreneur minded, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my uncle had a variety store. They call them liquor stores here, but back east we call them variety stores because they sold candy and sodas. And
like convenience stores for some people.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've been exposed to that all my life, just the whole entrepreneur thing. And I've done things over the years. I've sold greeting cards. When I was in the 5th grade, I used to sell candy from my uncle's store. I sold jewelry. I've done a number of things. I never thought I would actually be in a business related to consulting because I know some clients can be high maintenance. I thought when I went to school for engineering, I thought I could be in technical sales maybe.
Okay.
But anyway, so I was minding my own business and one of my consultants I was working for a manufacturing company at the time. And he said, you should start your own business. And I was like, okay. So I got a logo designed and some business cards made and I didn't do anything with it. And then he approached me again and was like, I started a business and I want you to be my partner. And I was like, okay. And that's really how it began. I mean, I was working. So that's how CTI started.
Wait. No, because I know you're leaving out some information, right? So the guy came up to you and was like, you should start a business. You
Oh,
thought
okay.
about it, you did a little bit, but then you didn't really do anything with it. So then you went into a partnership with him, and that's how you became an entrepreneur. Is that what I'm getting?
Yes.
Okay. And so then how long did you work with him before you branched out on your own?
Well, I was employed full time at the time.
Okay, so it was like a side job.
I wasn't doing much because I was working full time.
Okay.
And I didn't want to jeopardize my job. So I was very careful not to be in conflict with my job.
Okay.
And
So
so
when did
my
you quit your
job, we
job?
worked with schools.
Uh-huh.
So I made sure I didn't do anything with schools. Um, and our business was really designed to go after some of the opportunities in the environmental space for minority and women-owned companies.
Got
So the
it.
beauty of it is that, like, our strategy was we have a startup with 25 years experience because my partner had 25 years experience. So there was
Okay.
a strategy, but I knew I couldn't go from full-time employee to, so it was an opportunity that was presented to me, and I decided to say yes, because that's how you win, right? By saying yes. So
So, okay.
yeah.
So how long were you working, on this, side job before you were like, you know what, I'm going to quit my full-time job and just do this 100%?
Well, actually, I did not quit.
Oh, okay.
Oh. So this is, I was told that when you come on and when you talk with Lolita, it's the raw truth. Like you
Right. I
all
want to
of it.
know.
Yeah, so I didn't quit. Um, so this was 2009. So in 2011, I got called into the office of my company, and we never went into the office because we were consultants. We worked out in the field. And I was like, what's going on? So called me to the office. HR was there. My manager was there. And I was like, what's going on? And then they said, it's great that you're ambitious. And, they had my website downloaded. Yeah, they had information about my company. And I was like, do they have me on video or some pictures of me somewhere I wasn't supposed to? Although I know I didn't do that, right?
Right.
Like, what is going on? And it's all about marketing, right? So I guess it looked like I was running a major corporation because they were saying, how are you doing all of this and working for us? I was like, it's just a website. And they
You did
said,
a
well, it
good job
says
on
your
that
hours
website.
are from 8 to 5. I'm like, you got it. I said, so what's going on? What are you saying? And they were like, here. They pushed over that final paperwork. Well, I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but they gave me the final paperwork, and so anyway, so I didn't quit. They made the decision for me.
Okay. And so you were forced with a decision upon yourself. Were you like, this is my chance to make this work? Is that what you thought?
Not really. The first thing I thought was, wow, I have 5 days left of medical benefits. Because this was like March 25th of 2011. So I'm
Uh-huh.
thinking, because I knew I needed to make a decision whether I'm going to really do this business or continue to work. And I probably would have continued to work because it's not like we were making all this money, or we had a contract. I would have probably continued to work and going back to selling jewelry or selling greeting cards or something along those lines. But then I thought, oh, well, maybe this is a sign, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
maybe this is a sign. And then my father had helped me, had given me a few dollars that year. And I was like, well, Dad gave me a few dollars, and, my company decided we needed to part ways. Maybe this is a sign. But then I realized how quickly money goes. Like when you have a paycheck coming in every 2 weeks, you don't really think about what if this ends or, this is all I have. So the money my father had gifted me, I thought, well, I have that money, and I can do a few things, but I realized you have to have money coming in. And at the time we did not. And so with my partner, um, that was a different story. I don't know if we want to go into that story, but
Okay, so there are people watching this video who are in similar situations like you were back in 2011. They have a full-time job. They kind of have like a side hustle they're not doing much with. And they're wondering, should I stop my full-time job, focus on my side hustle? Should I stop my side hustle and just focus on my full-time job? Should I wait until someone else makes the decision for me? Like, what would you say to them?
I would say don't stop. Don't quit your full-time job unless you have the resources to take you through a specified period of time. So if you say, I'm going to give myself till December, but I had just come back from South Africa. So my savings were pretty much depleted. So the time wasn't right. I mean, I had the gift from my dad, but I would not quit a full-time job unless you have a plan and you're really serious and committed about what you're doing.
Okay.
But you want to have a cushion, right? You want to have savings or at least someone you can go to. Because one of my mentors, he was concerned about me early on. And he said, most people either have savings or they have friends and family members they can go to borrow money from. And I had none of that. So he said, I'm a little concerned about you. And this is a person who always speaks truth to me. He doesn't sugarcoat anything.
Okay. And so, but obviously you made it work because fast forward 10 years and you're here, right?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting because I actually stayed with my partner for about a year until I realized that he thought he had me in a position where he could dictate to me how things were going to happen. And, he had some issues early on anyway, a little OCD. And so when he started accusing me of things, I was like, I don't have to put up with this. So for about a year, we continued to be partners because it was powerful to have a startup with a 25-year history. And he had employees. So those employees were my employees as well for my projects. But he saw our business as a side hustle for him. So he wasn't treating it like, okay, I have this company, I can dump resources into this second company. So it wasn't really a true partnership. So that was revealed to me, right?
Right.
And I was like, I am not subjecting myself to this. I'm leaving him, And I remember when I left, because we had an office, I went to work in my home office, and he told me that people go to work that work from home aren't successful. And he just could not believe that I was going to leave. And I remember he tried to sell me my computer for $1,500. And, it was just an interesting process, but it was a freeing process. And it's at that point when I really started to learn about business. And people will ask me who are starting a company who aren't making money, because in the beginning, you don't always make money. What did you do? What did you do until you finally, or they just think it just happens. And I said, well, I had Groupons because I remember my son saying, because I used to golf and go out to eat. And he said, you act like you still have a job. Because mind you, at that time, unemployment maxed out at $1,800 a month. I thought it was based on what, your earnings. So that was shocking, right? And I said, how am I going to make it? But I did. And if you ask me how, I said, I wish I had journaled better because I don't know. I mean, of course, it's my faith, right? Because if it wasn't for faith, I would have just gotten another job. But it took a while before, I had steady income, but I had some contracts. So when you asked that question about making my first 1,000, I was like, which one, right?
Okay, so put a pin in that real quick. Okay. We're going to come back to how you made that, right? So because for people out there, I actually just did another interview with Miss Sarita, and she does government contracting, but for healthcare staffing agencies, right? Okay. And so I know that you get a lot of your contracts through the government. And so there's people out there who want to go that route. They want to start a company where they can get government contracts. What do you think about that? Is that an easy way to go, or is it hard? Is it difficult? What are your thoughts on trying to get government contracts?
Well, when you say easy, I think things are easy because we have relationships or we're in the right place at the right time. Other than that, it's not, I don't know, that word easy. processes are simple, but we have no control of the outcome.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So to position yourself to do government contracting, you have to make sure that your business is in order. Right. So whatever your structure is, that you pay your taxes, that you have insurance. So you have to make sure you have a solid structure. And then you have to do your research, right? Because the government is humongous. So there are so many different agencies, whether it's the Department of Defense or Department of Agriculture. You have to know who buys your product. So it's definitely necessary to do research. And then you have to get registered in their system. So there are a number of steps you have to take. But it's a great idea because the government spends money and they pay their bills.
But it's intimidating, right? Because I've owned businesses before. I haven't had any government contracts simply because the process seems overwhelming to me. So for people watching this video, they may feel the same way, right? Do you get help, with that part? Like, is there a resource that you recommend to people who want to go into more government contracting?
There are plenty of resources. My sister helped me. Because if you can follow steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can do it yourself. But of course, there's the SBA, there's the Small Business Development Center. There are so many resources out there. It's just if you want to follow the herd or if you want to, be creative, you can even sign up for paid courses. I mean, that's another route you can go. Where you can find somebody who's been down that road and they have, so there's a shortcut, right? Because they've done it and they can tell you, you can skip a few steps if you work with them. So it's just, I think it's all about what people are willing to do. Right? Because I'll have people come to me. Just a couple weeks ago, someone sent me a $20 million government contract because he knows I do government contracting. And I said, okay, this is a lot of money, right? I've never done that much with the government. It doesn't just happen like that. Now, if he said, they're looking for a minority woman-owned company and here's 20 million and they want to, they need someone who's solid, who's done all these things. Okay, that's different. But just to say, you do government contracting, let's go after this $20 million contract. Like, do you have the resources to do that? We have to develop a proposal. There's a lot of work involved. And so you have to be realistic, I think, with your expectations. I mean, I always say there's the God factor, but that's not something we can predict, right? That's when that door opens up. You're like, wow, how did I get here? But as far as preparing, I think you have to be realistic. Am I ready for a $20 million contract? Well, yes, but I understand what all is involved. I understand that if I'm hiring people, that I have to be able to pay those people before the government pays me. Right. So
I love that you said that, right? Because people hear big numbers, right? Like $20 million, $5 million, even $1 million, even $100,000, right? They want these big contracts from these corporations, from the government, but can you really handle the contracts, right? Like you say, do you have the staff in place? Do you have your insurance, your bonding? Do you have, do you have every single thing in place that you need so that when you come to the table, they actually want to work with you, right? Instead of just saying, I could do the work and I'll figure it out along the way. Because I think a lot of people, that's what they want. They're like, I'm capable. I'm an engineer. I know what I'm doing. That's true. You know what you're doing as an engineer, but do you know what you're doing at running a $20 million business? Those are two completely different animals, right? So how did you, when you first started out, you had the partner, and I'm sure that you learned a lot with working through your partner. But when you guys split ways and it was just you, was it overwhelming? Or did you just take the systems that you were using with him and just transfer it to your own business?
His systems didn't work.
Okay.
Because his strategy was different.
Okay.
He was part of this network that I'm not a part of. I call it the Old Boys Network. So his life experience was just different than mine. And I don't think I knew enough. I didn't know what it would take for me to be successful. I didn't know how long it would take to get a contract because I had all these certifications, right? And while I didn't expect anyone to give me anything, I was under the impression that with these certifications, people were actually looking for me. They needed the service and all. And because So I'm an engineer. I'm, legitimately in business and have some experience. So everything that I've learned in business has been from me hiring people and then watching them and asking questions. So for instance, my partner had a contractor's license. I didn't have the license. So when we split, I didn't want a license. I didn't even know what I could do with the license. It wasn't important. I was a consultant and I was fine with consulting. But then I said, well, we've been marketing that license for 3 years. Someone's going to want me to do something with the license. And I remember thinking, how am I going to get a contractor's license, right? I mean, yes, I have an engineering degree, but still, a contractor's license. And so I started looking for people who I could work under their license. But then, long story short, I wound up taking the test and passed on the first go around. So I took the test. So I'm an A licensed contractor, licensed through the California State License Board. So that means I can actually build bridges if I wanted to, or a stadium. So that's what that license does for me. So what I did, I got hired people to do the work, and then I went on the job site, not just for photo ops, but just to learn what they were doing, ask questions. I mean, I would get a call. Let's say, for instance, we have a tank, above ground storage tank that needs to be removed. So I knew companies that I called them and said, hey, I have a client who needs an above ground storage tank removed. And then my consultant would ask me questions. I would go back to the client, like, where is it located? What's the size? And it was a lot of back and forth initially. And then the next time someone needed above ground storage tank removed, I was able to speak their language. Right? Or if I went to a meeting, I could talk about above ground storage tank removals. So that's how I learned. That's pretty much how I learned.
So you pretty much learned on the job.
Learned on the job. Now I brought some experience with me from consulting, right? Right. So early on, I did a lot of emergency planning for schools, because my last job, I worked as a risk management specialist. So there was something that I brought to the table, but with that contractor's license, it's like, what do I do with this? It just opened up other doors for me.
And you figured it out along the way, which is also wonderful. Okay, so I want to know, to the namesake of this video, how did you make your first $1,000? I want to know how you made it when you were without your partner. Tell us that story.
I was thinking about that. And I'm thinking that it was a consulting job, doing emergency planning for schools. Because one thing that I did a lot of networking. I actually like people, right? So I like being around people. Sometimes I network so much and I forget to ask for the business. But that's one thing I learned from my partner. But the employer who decided to fire me, I couldn't talk about it for like a year. It was so depressing, but now I'm proud to say. But that employer actually called me back to do work for them within a few months. Ooh. Because I was their emergency planning expert.
Don't you love it? Don't you love it?
It was exciting. Oh, it was so exciting. I was like, really? And then I wound up having lunch with the HR manager and the VP who hired me. Like later on, maybe a couple years later. And I said, you hired me and you fired me. And it was kind of, they probably were like, oh my gosh. But it was true. I was like, yeah. Two people. But anyway.
Yeah, and it was probably cheaper to keep you because now your consulting fees are more than what your salary was, I'm assuming.
Exactly.
Right? If they would have kept you on as an employee, they would have came out cheaper.
I would not be sitting here with you.
You wouldn't, girl. Everything happens for a reason. I love that story. Yeah. I absolutely love it. So back in the day, so you did that. You did your consulting. What was the biggest challenge that you faced that you're like, oh my God, I don't know if I could do this?
As far as the challenge was the moment when I realized, okay, so until I got my first long-term contract, I never knew where my money was coming from month to month. But it always showed up. It worked. And I think that was it. I thought, what if I can't pay my bills will I go back home? Because I'm from Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Because you hear stories of people, well, I slept in my car, and I was like, I don't think I would do that. And then I even thought about, I know people's houses I can go to eat. It was never there, but it was just something, you're like, what if? So I think there was nothing that came up that I didn't think I could accomplish.
Okay.
Even if it was a project, because I've been thrown into situations where I'll get a call and they'll say, somebody's going to call you to talk about X, Y, and Z. And I really didn't know about X, Y, and Z. And now this person is telling me, and, I'm taking notes. And then the phone rings. Here's this person who's going to talk to me about X, Y, and Z. So I've never had a challenge with that. I'm not saying I've never been uncomfortable.
Right.
There was an intimidation factor, but this is the path I chose. So what am I going to say? Well, I'm scared. I don't want to go to that meeting. So I
love it. I love that you said that.
But the what if the money's not there was always not all, but that was more of my issue the couple times. And it's funny because I was talking to my mother the other day, and she said to me, I forgot the question I asked her, but her answer was, when you were always late on your rent. I was like, Mom, I was late 2 times. She said, well, it seemed like more than that. There was twice where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm short, But yeah, so that was the most difficult thing for me.
Okay, and if you could go back to 2011, what would you do differently?
Well, my philosophy is everything I experienced prepared me for where I am now. I'm not saying I wouldn't change anything, but I learned everything I learned because of what I went through. But I think just more research, because like when you asked me about starting a company, and I'm like, okay. Like I always say, the wind blew. That's how I wound up in California. The wind blew, right? I was prepared, but the wind blew. So just being more, doing my research and knowing the direction I want to go in, so being part of that decision making instead of just letting things happen.
Okay, that makes sense.
Being more strategic in some of the decisions that I made.
Okay, and so for all of the entrepreneurs who are watching this video and they're thinking, can I do it? Can I not do it? Should I try it? Should I not try it? What words of advice or encouragement would you give them?
Well, you can value freedom or security.
Oh,
right?
So wait, we need to pause that and I need to replay that. Say that again, because that was powerful.
Well, freedom or security, that's one thing I learned early on. The times when I thought, why don't you just get a job? I said, well, I got hooked on this freedom. Being able to go where I wanted to go, when I wanted to go. I don't think I made a very good employee. It was a firing offense, but just who I am, right? I don't conform very well. And so, yeah, I just love the freedom to go. And it was never a time where I said, except for the 2 times I was short of my rent, where I needed all this money to do things. I don't feel like I ever missed a beat. And even when I started making money, I know I owed IRS and I had credit cards. There was a moment when I realized, you can pay all those things off. Like it took a moment because I just wasn't used to spending. And then at one point it was like, oh, bam, bam, bam,
Right.
I can pay all this off. Student loans, another story. But I mean, these other things. So, so the freedom. So a person has to decide if they're willing to let things go. Like I had one friend who said, girl, I can't do that because I love shoes. I'm like, okay. She likes to buy expensive shoes and bags. So you just have to decide if you are willing to go all the way. And if you can stick it out, if you're filling out a form and you say, oh, this is too hard, if you're going to quit, if you don't have the stick-to-itiveness and the discipline and the focus, if it's a game to you, I don't want to criticize any business, but if it's a game to you, do something that's pre-established. They might have the brochures for you and you can use and you can sell it on the side. But if you're really serious about moving forward, you just have to be focused and determined.
Wow. I love that. Is freedom or security? Yes. That was good, Robin. That was a good one. Okay. So to wrap things up, I would like for you to tell us one interesting thing about you that nobody probably knows.
Well, you know it, but most
What?
people don't know that I launched a nonprofit.
Okay. Oh, I thought, no, this doesn't count because everyone knows that it has an Instagram page and you do marketing. So no, I want something that nobody knows. We'll talk about your nonprofit, but what is something
Okay.
about you that no one knows?
That no one knows, like a
Mhm.
secret?
It doesn't have to be a secret, but maybe something that happened 20 years ago, or you did something interesting and you just didn't want to tell anybody, or you have a secret hobby.
Well, I already talked about going to South Africa, so I can't use that. Okay,
Hmm.
so I am an international speaker because I conducted a business workshop in South Africa.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't
I
know
did.
that.
I conducted, and that was from networking. I visited South Africa in 2009. I met a pastor. And so when I went back in 2011, I let him know that I was coming back. And he said, "Oh, you have to speak to my church. You know, a businesswoman from America." And I was like, "I'm not a preacher." He's like, "No, I want you to do a business seminar." So I actually went to South Africa and I did a business seminar and I did a vision board workshop for women.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's
And
pretty cool.
it was the first time I presented that seminar. It was called Overcoming Obstacles. And I used the stories of fellow engineers and some business owners talking about their stories and the principles associated with success principles associated with
Do,
their stories.
do you still teach this seminar?
I haven't done it in a while. I was just thinking that I wanted to start teaching it again because it was
Yeah.
powerful. And then it was
Yeah.
my very first vision board workshop as well.
Wow. Okay. So now tell us about your nonprofit because a lot of people are interested in maybe starting their own nonprofit or supporting other nonprofits. So tell us what your nonprofit is and what its mission is.
All right, my nonprofit is called Demo Chicks. We empower, we enlighten, and we elevate. And it's to introduce girls to non-traditional careers. And I started it after my very first government contract, which was a $4 million demolition of a federal prison out in Borderline, California. And when we executed that project, I realized how many components there were. And I said, this is a curriculum in itself. And we
Mm-hmm.
were paying our general laborers $38 an hour. And I said, people need to know about this because not everyone's going to go to school to get a 4-year degree. And you can actually make a decent living as a laborer on these types of projects or equipment operator and those types of things. And then I said, and girls need to know about this,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so, and it's something that I've always done as far as reaching out to girls as a chemical engineer, whenever there's an opportunity to speak. And I think that our Black girls need to hear or need to see me as an example. And
Mm-hmm.
so all my career, I've, allowed myself to be visible. So I figured, why not formalize it? And started this movement. My nephew designed the image. And so our plan was we were conducting workshops in person, but after COVID-19, now we're doing virtual workshops the fourth Thursday of every month. Demochicks.com is our website. Demo Chicks is our IG handle. And on Facebook, we're Demo Chicks as well.
That's amazing because I do follow you on Instagram and I see all of the young ladies who are interested in quote unquote non-traditional type of careers, and I think that that's amazing because I remember when I was growing up, it was just like you become like a nurse, a doctor, a dentist, like it was like very basic type of careers. I didn't know that there were so many possibilities out there. So I love that you're opening up the doors for people at such a young age so that they're aware when they're younger. By the time they get to high school or college, they know that they can do different things instead of the typical things that that we're used to seeing all the time. So I love that. Love it, love it, love it. Now, tell us how we can find you if anybody wants to contact you for any additional information.
That's a good question.
You don't know the answer.
Well, because so they can find me, email me, or Instagram. So if they email me, it's robin@ctienviro.com.
Okay.
I need to spell it. They can find me on Instagram, CTI Enviro. That's
okay.
CTIEN as in Nancy, V, Victor, IRO, short for environmental. Facebook for all the older folks. CTI Environmental.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, Robin, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out your day to do this interview. I know that the words that you told us today are going to inspire someone out there to go forward and do whatever, thing that they have in their brain to not get distracted and to focus. And I love your stories about how, your old job let you go, but then you started a new job, like you overcame all those obstacles, and you are such an inspiration to so many people out there. So thank you for taking the time to show up for How I Made My First 1K. Thank you.
Thank you.